Just thought I would outline where I think the Teddington and Hampton end of the patch sit in terms of primary care networks, and rather than sending photos, I thought it'd be easier to go through the maps live, as it were. So this just uses Google Earth and NHS England's data on practice catchment areas to give you an idea of where they all sit. This shows all of them, but let's take Barnes, Kew, Richmond and Sheen away first of all, and then we'll just focus in on Teddington and Hampton there. So let's start with Hampton. I'm not sure where you've got to with talking to the Green and Fir Road, but the red area there is Fir Road, and I think that underlines what I think most of us have felt all along, which is that it doesn't make a lot of sense to put Fir Road with Twickenham. You can make a case for it if I just show you here. Those are the Twickenham practices, and that's then the Fir Road catchment. So there isn't really any overlap, but they do sit next to one another. Obviously, it is up to Urchin and Rosie at the Green and Fir Road what they want to do, but I think it's if they are keen to move across with you, then that does make sense. The other thing we can do is we just show you all the Hampton practices within the Green included. You can make a case for that. You know, there's an argument to be made there. We'll take that again for now, and we'll just build up the individual Hampton practices one by one. So that's Broad Lane there. Then if you overlay Hampton Medical on top of that, and then Hampton Hill, and then Fir Road, what you get is an area where the darker shading indicates a greater overlap of catchments. So covering Hampton as you'd expect, it's best. And it extends down into Teddington, Hampton Wick, and then in one case over to the border with Richmond. But I think that's a pretty discrete geographical area. So with just Fir Road, that puts you just over 30,000. If you include the Green again, as well, that takes you up to about 34, 35 from memory. So that's Hampton. Let's put Teddington in as well. And what you can see there, we'll take Hampton away in a second, but that just shows you that although there is some overlap, chiefly around the Hampton and Twickenham end, again, generally the darker area there in Teddington is where the Teddington practices catchments overlap. So we'll just take Hampton out for a second, and again we'll build up the Teddington practices from scratch. So that's Thames side. Zoom in slightly so you can see that more clearly. And then if we put Park Road over the top, again good overlap, I think completely overlaps with Thames side's catchment. And then that's Hampton Wick as well. So coming out again, some extension down into what I suspect is Kingston CCG, but catchment wise I think that's a sensible area. The problem we have there is that that's only 27,000+ patients, and the updated guidance for networks does say that under 30,000 is only really intended for rural areas over a large geography. What we will need to do, therefore, I think, is either to borrow some patients from Twickenham, so to have a practice there that sits between two networks, or to do it from the Hampton side. So if, for instance, you do have the Green sitting with the Hampton practices, then that means that we could then say have Hampton Hill if Ansley's available, sitting between the Teddington and the Hampton networks. And if we just look at those catchments, there is a significant overlap there. So we can make a case that if everyone's happy, and that would then allow us to have two separate networks in Teddington and Hampton of pretty much exactly 60,000. If the Green isn't going to join Hampton, then we'd need to talk to some of the Twickenham practices about sort of probably some of the southern ones there, Acorn, York, Crossdeep, about sitting in the Teddington network as well as the Twickenham one. But we can cross that bridge when we get there. Hope that's helpful.